if you took me apart and said what changed my life and what gets me out of bed in the morning, my faith in God, that when I was a young boy, somebody told me the incredible message of God's love for me, and of Christ's life for me and his death for me, and the fact that here at last was somebody who knew me better than I knew myself, and still loved me.
Rob, welcome to the Turn to Wisdom podcast. It's
Thanks,
such
Brian.
a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Especially, thank you for taking this time out of your busy schedule. Your work for Care for the Family has had such a positive impact. We probably will never be able to measure how far that's gone. Not least my family and my own life, and the lives of my colleagues in the police. We built wooden stands and we put them in all the different police stations. I'll share a dead quick story with you. There was a gentleman who emailed me and he said, "Thank you, Brian, for all your work." He said it, I believe, is worth it. I sent a letter to my autistic son to tell him how much I loved him.
Amazing, well done, congratulations. No, it's great. It's a wonderful thing when we hear those stories. You know, we get emails and phone calls, and people come up to me at events and just tell me of something which seemed sometimes quite small, but it changed their lives. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. You're currently touring the UK, and you're sharing an intimate conversation with audiences about your life, and it's contained in your latest book, A Knock at the Door, which I absolutely love. You had me laughing, you had me crying, but I can't believe how intimate kind of atmosphere you managed to create. I would really encourage people to go, and I've got a list of the dates and tours that are left so people can catch that. Would you please share your thoughts on your book and your tour for people to get a flavour of what they're going to be coming to see?
Well, quite a lot of the toys. There's two things really that I talk about, and what we do, Brian, we recreate my living room when I was a kid. I lived in a little terraced house. We didn't have an inside toilet. We didn't have running hot water. We didn't have a bathroom. We didn't even have toilet paper. And so it was all pretty basic. And we would I just talk about what life was like as a child for me. And my mum could read and write, but not much more than that. And then I managed to get to the grammar school. But you know, the second I did, I realised I'd made a dreadful mistake. These kids had things I didn't have. And on the first day of school, the teacher shouted out, "I want you to tell me what your fathers do for a living." And kids all around me yelled accountant and lawyer, and I mumbled postman as quietly as I could. And I didn't do well in that school at all. I went to some of my friends' homes, and I noticed, Brian, that their homes were filled with books. We only had 3 books in our house. We had a Bible that nobody read. We had an atlas, and something called the Doctor's Book, which was a scary book. Whatever illness you looked up, you had. And probably the one on the facing page as well. And I don't know, perhaps I was lazy. I don't know, but I didn't do well at school. And I just felt rubbish academically. In fact, I've still got my report book. When we do the tour, we actually show them some of the comments that my teachers made about me in school. And on one occasion, when I came 34th out of 34, my teacher wrote, "Disgraceful, he is making no use of what little ability he has." And you know, I think when my teacher wrote those words, he perhaps didn't really understand what he was doing. He thought he was just putting some ink on paper, but actually he was creating a little box for me, and on front of that box was scrawled "rubbish academically." And the bottom was disgraceful, and the sides were marked "no hope," and the top was marked "no ability." And because he was a teacher, Brian, and I was a kid, I climbed into that box, and I lived in that box for years. And the messages we are given when we're children are very, very powerful. So I talk about my life and how it developed. I had amazing opportunities later in life, and had a measure of academic success as well. But then I also talk in the book and the tour about when Dan and I had been married for just a couple of years. Kids weren't there then, and one night there's a knock on the door near Christmas. And I open it, there's a homeless man there called Ronnie Lockwood. And in his right hand, he's got a black plastic bag with all his worldly possessions. His left hand, a frozen chicken. And I half recognised him. He used to come to our little Sunday school when we were kids. He used to spend his life in a care home. And the Sunday school superintendent used to go and get Ronnie and bring him down. But now he's homeless. He's found out where I live. And we invited him in, and he stayed with us that night and the next night and over Christmas, and he never left. He lived with us for 45 years.
Wow.
When he'd been with us a short time, Brian, I was a lawyer by then, and so I'd obviously managed to pass a couple of exams in between school and then, but I was a lawyer by then, and I used to drop him off at the dust yard because he got a job as a dustman. And Dan said to me, make sure he gets to work on time. So I used to drop him off at the dust yard. Then I go into law practice. I'd get him far too early. And some nights I'd get home and he'd be in a chair smiling. I'd say, Ronnie, what are you smiling at every night? Robbie said, when you take me to work in the mornings, the other men say, who's that patient to work in the car? And I say, oh, that's my solicitor. And I've thought a lot about that, Brian. I don't think it was proud of being taken to work by a lawyer. Do you know what I think it was? Ronnie never had a mother take him first day of school. Never had a dad say when he's 11, how to go in the big school today, son? And now at last somebody's at the gate. And so in my book and in the tour, which is called An Evening with Rob Parsons, and we performed it last Saturday night at the Royal College of Music in London, big packed auditorium, I talk about my life and Ronnie's life. Because in some ways, as I began writing the book and researching the book and thinking back on our 45 years with Ronnie, I realized that we had more similarities than I thought. We both believed we were rubbish when we were kids. We both met people who changed our lives forever. And so the book is called The Knock on the Door, and yeah, that's the heart of it, my life and Ronnie's life, really.
Oh, wow. Do you know, I really, really loved listening to you telling. I had similar experiences when I was a kid, but we had difficulties at home. So we had shame with the police coming to our doors and things, but you obviously believe we all have value and we have acceptance as well, but it's just, I guess, finding the people who can see the gold and call out the gold in us, and you give great examples of that. But Arthur Tovey, the Sunday school superintendent, encouraged you that you were a public speaker when other people had looked at you and, like you say, 34th out of 34, saying you weren't using what little you had. He could see in you that you had this amazing gift for storytelling, an amazing gift for helping people to understand life. So, for people out there who are like you, like Ronnie, like me, who had people who weren't telling them, what encouragement would you give to them?
Well, my life did change. I mean, Arthur Tovey really had not much going for him. He and his wife were poor. They lived in 2 rooms in his mother's house. Arthur had never passed an academic exam in his life. He and his wife believed then they couldn't have kids of their own. But they loved young people and used to work with people. And I think Arthur and Margaret must have woken up one day and said, well, darling, we don't seem to have very much. We haven't got any money. We haven't got any academic qualifications. We can't have kids of our own right now. But we've got a couple of rooms. And you know what? We've got a dining table, and if we put those 2 bits of hardboard on, we can play table tennis with them if they get bored after we've taught them a bit about the Bible. And if we save our money, we can buy them fish and chips. Why don't we give it a shot? And I think the answer to your question is you almost need to meet somebody who believes in you. You know, when you're rubbish, it's a terrible feeling. Some years ago, my wife and I were taken into the Sinai desert. And the guide showed us a plant that had learned to survive when the rain didn't come. It didn't die all at once in the drought. It sacrificed a half of itself. And then if the rain still didn't come, a half of that and a half of that, until there was just perhaps 1 stalk hanging on. And he said when the water hits it, if the rain does come, there's a pod at the top which explodes with seeds and sends seeds of life hundreds of feet into the desert. And I think many of us are like that. We are dying for lack of appreciation, for a husband, a wife, a friend, an employer, a teacher, to say, good job, well done. What's your opinion of that? You look nice in that today. I really appreciate what you did. And the tiniest thing can change everything. I am staggered in Care for the Family how tiny actions can make an enormous difference. Do you know, I remember being in a marriage seminar. I was running it in Canada, a big 2,000-seater auditorium. And as I walked in, the people organising it said, there's a couple in the front row, they're about to have a divorce, so we don't really know why they've come. And honestly, Brian, they were sat in the front row, they look as if they hated each other, they look as if they hated me. And all the way through the seminar, which began at 7:30, finished at 10 o'clock, they didn't talk to each other. When people went out for the coffee break, they didn't move, they just sat there immobile, not talking. And then suddenly, at 9:45, he reached out and took her hand. I saw her pull her hand back and then watched as she put her hand back and put her hand over his hand. I could hardly finish the event. I'm watching those hands. And somebody said to me afterwards, are you about to tell us that a touch saved their marriage? And I said, well, I don't know, but I do know this. I've seen a marriage go down in a spiral over the years. Sometimes not big things, not the affair, not abuse of stuff, but just 1,000 tiny hurts that never got resolved. Somebody called it a creeping separateness. And sometimes something very small, sometimes even a touch, can kick that spiral going up again. And I think the answer to your question is, although we can sometimes, you know, when I talked about my form teacher making a box for me and it was called rubbish academically and the lid was no hope, sometimes we can push that lid up ourselves and we can have the courage to grasp opportunities a bit outside our comfort zone. But the honest truth is, it's hard. We need each other. And so if possible, we need to find somebody who believes in us and who bring that little bit of encouragement. And when it happens, it's like rain in the desert. And I'm staggered by, you know, I've by the grace of God, I've had an interest in life. I've written 30 books. I've been a senior partner of 11 office law practice. I've lectured all over the world. In the end, ended up with a PhD and I don't know what else. But along that road were people who did simple things for me and encouraged me in simple ways. And we need that. And we need it for ourselves and we need to do it to other people.
So, would it be fair to say, believe in yourself, have hope, that there is a space for you? Just like if you're a jigsaw puzzle piece, there's a space for you in that big picture. And it's like people may help you to see where you fit.
That business, you know, I honestly believe that every one of us has a gift. Most of us are a bit more insecure than we let on. All of us, me included. But I think everybody has a gift. But those childhood messages are very strong. And if only we can overcome them and just in a small way try something we hadn't done before. Try it. See if there's somebody who can encourage us in it. It's amazing. I mean, I write books, and people sometimes say, "Well, I'd really love to write a book." Well, just begin. Just sit down and put some words on paper, or I'd like to try this or try that. You normally have to move out of your comfort zone, and that's scary. And I can remember being invited to speak at events. I was so scared I used to be sick in the toilet afterwards. So it's not comfortable trying to move out your comfort zone, but if you can, normally it pays dividends.
Well, I love leaving people a little better than I find them. It's just something that it warms my heart. It's something I aim to do, because of people, like you say, who leave you a little better. Mr. Tovey and his wife might not have had a lot, but and we hear about it in your presentation and in a knock at the door, how much of themselves that they poured into other people to help them to become who they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's valuable. I think even if people, you don't have to have be able to play a virtuoso piece on a violin. If you're a good listener, if you're a good encourager, it can change lives. So, what I'd love to ask you, so Care for the Family has so many, it's like, so many facets to the resources that can help you in practically any uh, situation you find yourself in, whether it's marriage, whether it's birth, whether it's parenting, whether it's bereavement, all the different things that can happen to you in life. But is there, what's the heart of your work, Rob? What's the kind of golden thread that carries you through?
Well, if I could have two golden threads,
Okay.
if I may, your audience, many of them, I'm sure, will share your Christian faith, but others may not, and that's true of all the people we speak to in our big events. Many of them will share my faith, but many won't. It'll be all faiths and no faiths, and we're there for everybody, whatever they don't believe or do believe. We're just there for everybody. But I have to say that if you took me apart and said what changed my life and what gets me out of bed in the morning, it was my faith in God. That when I was a young boy, somebody told me the incredible message of God's love for me, and of Christ's life for me and His death for me, and the fact that here at last was somebody who knew me better than I knew myself, and still loved me. And that gave me an incredible thing. Do you know, when I can remember embarking on an academic course, it was a master's degree, and in quite a prestigious university, and I thought, I'm not sure I can do this. And I can remember kneeling in my study and saying, Lord, you're the great wordsmith, you know how to do this stuff better than me. Could you walk this journey with me and help? And people may say, well, that's crazy, but I'm telling you that's been my life. That's been my life. So that's been a golden thread right the way through. But the second golden thread is what we call vulnerability. We have discovered that if we're going to touch people's lives, we need to be vulnerable ourselves. So I'm not ashamed to say that Dan and I have been married a long time, over 50 years, but we've been through tough times. Times when it seemed that love had died, when it seemed that the thing to do would be to walk away. And we've been through times of depression and fear. And I say to our people who want to volunteer with us in Care for the Family, look, if you've got a perfect marriage and you've got 3 perfect kids and they save their pocket money for Shakespeare study guides and complain that church services aren't long enough and you can't wait to share your gems with the world out there, you're probably not our kind of person. We need people who've cried a bit, because we think that people need answers. Well, they do. And we're an evidence-based thing, so we work with psychiatrists and psychologists and I don't know who else. And answers are fine. But mostly we find what people really want is to know this is not just me.
Yeah.
I'm not the worst mother on the face of the earth. I haven't got the only teenager driving me crazy. I'm not the only person who, after losing my child, wants to end their life. I'm not the only person who wants to walk away from this marriage. Others have walked this path and come through it. And so that sense of vulnerability. And what you said earlier, listening. Many years ago, after Dan was quite ill, we started in our home something we called the Strugglers Group. And it was for people, we met every night on a Wednesday for many years. It was for people who were a bit broken. They'd had an emotional breakdown, they'd had faith and lost it, their relationships were in trouble, and they crowded into our little room, and all we had to do was to listen. We would sometimes pray for people, and it was remarkable. And you know what? I think those nights in the Strugglers Group were really the seed out of which Care for the Family was eventually born. So those 2 threads for me, my faith in God. I'm not saying I'm better or worse than anybody else, but that's not what I'm saying. God's faith in me and my faith in God changed everything, and then that little golden thread of vulnerability.
Wow, thank you so much, Rob. Well, you've answered all my questions brilliantly as always, and I would love to tell people if they would like to come and spend an evening with you in your recreated childhood living room, then their opportunity is there's still dates available in Horsham on the 4th of November, Tunbridge 5th of November, Worthing 6th of November, High Wycombe 18th of November, Southampton 19th of November, and Fleet on the 20th of November. And I'll hold that close to the screen so people can get in contact with you if they want to.
They can. All the details on the Care for the Family website as well, Brian. You can get tickets. They're selling out for some of those events. They're selling out fast. So if you'd like to come, get on there pretty quick if you can. But yes, the Care for the Family website. You'll be able to see them all on that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And if people love what you do and they would like to either volunteer for Care for the Family or support you financially, would that be the same place, Care for the Family website?
Yeah, get in touch with the Care for the Family website. Get in touch with us and let us know, and that would be brilliant. Thank you.
And you've very kindly signed 10 books for us, so I've got as a giveaway for Turn to Wisdom. If you would want to put a comment on the video, subscribe, and I'll send you, give me your address, I'll post a book to you signed with love from Rob. So that's it. Thank you so much for taking this time this morning. It's been one of my favourite interviews. We're one of my favourite people. So thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Brian. It's lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. And thanks for all you're doing, changing people's lives. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.